Hoosier students on the right track. A vote recount flips candidates, and road funding fixes figured. From the television studios at WFYI Public Media, it's Indiana Week in Review for the week ending August 14th, 2026.
Indiana Week in Review is produced by WFYI in association with Indiana Public Broadcasting Stations. Additional support is provided by Ritchie.
Indiana's middle schoolers are struggling with math and English, but the state's youngest readers are continuing to make gains. Caroline Beck reports on the latest scores for the state's iLearn and iRead tests.
Tuesday's results showed that iRead scores have improved for the fifth year in a row. For the state's assessment on grades 3 through 8 on math and English, it is harder to tell how students are doing. That's because this year's scores set the new benchmark for iLearn after the test went through changes and new state academic standards were established. Indiana Secretary of Education Katie Jenner says now they're working towards improvement.
And our goal will be to take that baseline, where we see it today, and we will work to improve across the board, just like you've seen us do with reading.
New A to F letter grades are also expected to be given out to schools later this year after being on a 5-year hiatus.
So are the kids doing all right? It's the first question for our Indiana Week in Review panel. Democrat, Terri Austin. Republican, Mike O'Brien. Laura Merrifield Wilson, political science professor at the University of Indianapolis, and Ebony Chappel, director of brand and community strategy at Free Press Indiana. I'm Jill Sheridan, managing editor at WFYI. So, Terri, is this a significant win for Indiana students and schools?
I think it is. As a former teacher, anything we can do to help our kids become strong readers, and they've lagged recently. The good news is they're up above pre-pandemic levels, and the science of reading program seems to really be taking hold. It reminds me of how I learned to read, heavy phonics, spelling, comprehension, all those things. So they've set an ambitious goal. 95% is what they're reaching for everybody. And I think if we continue down this path, we'll get there. The trick is to get the General Assembly not to try to change things again.
Because these changes did come, from the legislature, obviously, and we made changes to, the number of standardized testing. Do you think that these changes are paying off now? Are we seeing this, or will the legislature?
Paying off. I mean, the legislature, it's not a mystery how this happened. The legislature prioritized it and funded it. A few years ago, coming out of COVID, Senate Bill 1 was titled Reading Skills. So it was entirely what we're seeing improve now, and it set that baseline, set up processes for to find kids or to identify these kids that were falling behind, get them into remediation programs, get them into the summer school program, and it's paying off. But it's not it's not rocket science if you just if you prioritize it and pay for it. That's what they did. Now they're obviously pivoting to math and other areas, and hopefully we'll see the same benefits sitting here 2 or 3 years from now.
I mean, this is, following the pandemic when we had such a learning loss, it seemed, and obviously we did make moves. The test scores were delayed this year because of this new model and this new measure that we're using. But from what you read, seeing these scores, they're not dramatic, but certainly a lot of people were celebrating this week.
Oh, absolutely. I think a small increase is still incredible. And to be able to get back to pre-pandemic levels, it's unfortunate. That's 6 years that it's taken us. And that's 6 years of children graduating from high school, beginning kindergarten, and all ages in between. As a parent, I love the science of reading curriculum. I think it's absolutely fantastic. Now, what I hope is that we're still adequately funding these schools. We've made it harder for school referendums to come about. We're constantly looking at cutting and saving. And our teachers are doing this not because we're adequately supporting them, but despite that. I think we really need to talk about, in order to increase these gains, and Mike's absolutely right, I think math is going to be next, really is a big focus point. In order to do that, we have to be able to financially support it.
How do you think we should best do that, Ebony, and make sure that we do not slip back?
Absolutely. I think where you start first are the schools that fell below that 80 and 90% passing. So if you look at certain townships like Hamilton, Southeastern, Carmel, Clay, they were performing very, very well. But then you look at places like where I graduated, Wayne Township, Warren, IPS, they're in that 70% range, which, all gains are positive, but we need to really invest in those areas where we see that there still are gaps, because statistics show that lack of literacy skills and the correlation between that and the criminal justice system are deeply tied. So we have to pay attention to that. We have to keep investing in our children's futures.
Let me ask you about another metric, since you're a former educator too, the state moving back to the A to F grades that we used for many, many years, and now we're looking to that to assess schools as well. Will that make sense for us?
Well, I was never really a fan of the A through F because I'm not sure it really tells parents a lot. You're much better off, like they're using the science of reading program and the literacy scores, breaking it down. Where are schools strong? Where are they weak? Where do they need to improve? And then help them get there. But they've had the A through F, they've pulled it back, now it's back again. That's what I mean. The General Assembly can be very fickle, and they sometimes create some of these problems, quite honestly. So I'm hoping they'll just let things rest for a while and let people work and try to improve.
It's all about accountability. That's what the goal is for
lawmakers.
The
push and pull on the A to F system has always been, what's the input? What are we measuring? What is an A grade or a B grade or an F grade telling me? Because what are we actually measuring? It's easy to understand, which is like why it's popular.
Right.
Everyone gets it. And we've scored these schools for forever. We've just done it in a way no one understands. So they try to do it in a way that makes sense. But what actually is behind that letter is what the real story is what you're getting.
Well, it's time now for viewer feedback. Every week we pose an unscientific online poll question. This week's question: is the state on the right track with standardized testing methods? Vote yes or no. The last question posed to viewers: is the continued gas tax holiday a top affordability solution for Hoosiers? 30% answering yes and 70% saying no. If you would like to take part in the poll, go to WFYI.org/IWIR and look for the poll. A new victor has been crowned in the Senate District 23 race. Ben Thorpe reports Trump-backed candidate Paula Copenhaver pulled ahead of incumbent Spencer Deery in a very tight race for Indiana's District 23.
After the May primaries, the initial count came down to a 3-vote difference, with incumbent Deery narrowly beating Copenhaver. But the Indiana Recount Commission rejected a number of ballots from both candidates for technicalities that included missing signatures. That put Copenhaver over the top. She says she's declaring victory.
My reaction is I'm ready for the general.
In a statement, Deery said the commission had undermined the will of Indiana's voters. He said he plans to appeal their decision.
So, Mike, will this recount now hold for District 23, do you think? We're also hearing from Senator Deery about some accusations of impropriety.
Well, we're going to court. And it's not the conflict of interest accusation.
Yes.
That's more of a political line. The real issue, and which I struggle with, we have processes, all these, you got to check all these boxes for votes to be valid, and I appreciate that. I do have a problem when the voter had nothing to do with this. They weren't standing there instructing the election worker to make sure they signed off on that ballot, and so that was the reason these eight votes, 2 for her and 6 for Deery, were tossed, is because the election worker on the back end didn't properly endorse it. That's not my problem as a voter, right? So why is my vote getting spiked and now the outcomes change because of and this is mostly a volunteer-driven process, right? So we're counting on people that are willing to show up for 18 hours on a Tuesday to get it right every time, rather than the spirit of it. So we'll see what the court says. I don't think the law is that rigid, but we're going to find out. I mean, the attorneys for Copenhaver have used all the arguments that are available to them. So we'll see if it holds.
Yeah, I mean, that is sort of the core of it. It's not the voters' fault. The clerks are the ones that were responsible for making sure that the ballots were correctly stamped and signed. And, if that's the case, then do we need to go back to other races and make sure that everything else is in order? I mean...
Well, so when the ballots are being cast and, depending on what kind of machine the counties have, and they have some leeway what to pick based on some state standards. But the real issue is the training of the workers, the election workers, both the folks in the run-up on the early voting and then on election day. And there are a lot of steps. And when you've got big lines coming through, it's easy to lose track of where you are and whether you're initialing envelopes. I mean, we really need to take a look at whether or not all of these are absolutely necessary for the voter. Once the voter has proved that who they are and their identity is solid and they're eligible to vote as a citizen, then being able to just cast their ballot without having all these extra check boxes and things like that based on somebody else's performance should really be, I think, thrown out.
Well, Ebony, this saga has really been something to watch. As you know, we've been back and forth, such an extremely close race, 3 votes before, 3 votes now, accusations that, voters voted when they should not have for a candidate that was not in their party. With this now recount, and we're hearing some more accusations of dark money and improper relationship, what is a voter to make of this race and this outcome?
I think there are a couple of different ideas to take away from this as a voter. One, talking about the issue of disenfranchisement, which I think Terri and Mike have pointed to. If as a voter you show up and you're properly accounted for, you have your identification, you're doing all of the number of steps that we make people jump through in order to vote in this state, you've done that. And then to get down to the point where we're throwing out ballots, then there's a conversation about mail-in ballots and those not, some of those not counting. I think that there is definitely an issue about voter disenfranchisement. But the other thing that I think is really compelling about this whole saga is the fact that every vote truly counts. We have had a lot of voter apathy in this state when it comes to our local and municipal elections and people feeling like, oh, it doesn't matter. If you've ever felt like that before, this example right here should prove to you that every single minuscule little vote truly does count at the end of the day.
Or it might not.
Or it might not. Or it might not, which is a bigger issue. And I think that there is a very dangerous precedent being set when we are saying, oh, because I'm not happy with the outcome, now I want to go through and we're going to create another set of rules to then decide that these ballots should be thrown out. I think it's very problematic and it's something that people should pay attention to. But I wonder if the margin was a lot larger, maybe we wouldn't be in this 3 here, 3 there situation.
I don't think we would at all. And, do you think it disenfranchises people, or do you think, maybe people are more fired up as we go through this process?
Yeah, I think both of those things certainly could be true. To the points Ebony and Terri made, the process doesn't seem to make sense. If you're missing clerk signatures, that's a problem. And it is a detail that's important. We all make mistakes. Yes. But in this case, and to Mike's point there, you had Deery up by 3 votes. Now he's behind by 3 votes. You're talking about 8 votes. Every vote does count, and it should be counted. Whether or not it has the clerk's signature on the back, if that's truly necessary, I think we have to ask ourselves, why do we have this process that we have? What's most important to include in it? Because if that was my vote, I would feel jaded. I'd feel really upset. I would feel disenfranchised. I would feel fired up. But I'd feel really concerned about the process because someone forgot to sign something, and I make mistakes all the time, right? But now they're not going to count my vote, and those 3 votes do determine the outcome of this race.
Well, do you think there's impropriety in the process, in this particular process, because of the recount commission and some of the accusations that have been made of close relationships and so much money coming in from the outside for this particular it's a primary Republican state Senate race? Is that a concern?
Well, the real concern for me is the fact that people relied on the fact that they went to vote and they did what they were supposed to, and now their vote is not counting. Can you imagine being a voter? And I don't even think they notify the voters and tell them, hey, by the way, we threw your ballot out. I mean, and it's probably a good thing that they don't, because somebody's going to be hopping mad. And that's what causes disillusionment, and they do get jaded when it comes to elections, and they think, why bother?
Yeah, I don't think there's impropriety in this. I think they're calling the shot they had in front of them. Paul Mullen's a great guy, he's a great lawyer. So I have a lot of respect for him. He's going to shoot straight and call the shot as he sees it, I think.
He told us it was ridiculous. Well, the Chicago Bears say they're still on track for a move across state lines. Michael Gallenberger reports on the latest look at sites in Northwest Indiana.
Bears president and CEO Kevin Warren says the team continues to have occasional meetings with Illinois lawmakers, but its sole focus remains on building a stadium and mixed-use development in Hammond, Indiana.
We've been working diligently to complete all of the topographical studies, the geographical studies, environmental studies, in addition to assembling the land that's needed.
During a press conference Thursday, Warren said a Lost Marsh site was found to be viable, while due diligence continues on a nearby Wolf Lake terminal site.
So, Laura, is Indiana still ahead in this stadium showdown?
It certainly seems so. There's a lot of things we don't know. There's no clear timeline for decision. It's not always clear what Illinois has said or offered or why we keep going back and forth. But we do know that they've looked at Lost Marsh. They've looked at Wolf Lake Terminal. They're completing a study on that in terms of the ecological and environmental impact. So it seems that we're headed in the right direction. But I will say it does feel like a will we, won't we kind of situation where everyone keeps waiting and we don't yet have a decision.
I mean, she mentions the site, this other site that's now been targeted that we're hearing about. I do wonder, what type of environmental remediation needs to be done. They're saying they're doing their due diligence. Is that going to be a factor moving forward, or is any environmental issue going to be addressed?
Well, I think there's a couple things that come to my mind when we talk about this. Indiana has proven itself to be very, very friendly and accommodating to big business and major developments. So I think that they're going to do whatever it is that they have to do, the powers that be, to make this attractive to the Chicago Bears. I do, however, wonder when you talk about environmental issues and also just all of the money that is being poured into the project and who stands to benefit. I would hope that the leaders in the region are doing whatever it is in their power to make sure that their residents benefit from this progress, should it come our way.
And we are, we didn't hear anything final. A lot of people were thinking that we'd get, a groundbreaking date or something, nothing like that. And in fact, there is still some talks going on with Illinois legislators. Do you think that that's still fully in play or not, Terri?
Well, I don't think Illinois is going to give this up without a fight, quite honestly. And what I read coming from one of the Bears public relations people is that on a scale of 1 to 10, this announcement was really a 3. So everybody gets all hyped up and excited over it. There's still a long way to go. Long way to go.
What do you see, Mike? Obviously, when the announcement that they would move to Hammond happened, Indiana lawmakers and leaders were just so ecstatic. Do you think we're still feeling that level of excitement and everything's still on track?
I think so. There were legislative leaders up in Northwest Indiana this week again. So the relationship is really solid. Lifelong Bears fan from the region, right. So I'm pumped. But one thing I do listen to the rhetoric out of Illinois from Democrats in Illinois, and it is like off-the-shelf talking points, right? It's handouts of billionaires and all this nonsense. We don't structure these deals that way, and they should pay attention to that because they do benefit the residents of the community. If you took the same approach that Illinois takes to this concept to downtown Indianapolis, we wouldn't have hotel workers, bartenders, waiters and waitresses who are all benefiting from the public assets that we've created. And we don't hand billions of dollars to billionaires. We create these assets that create economic opportunity, that create economic activity, that then pay for themselves, and everybody benefits.
We have some stadiums that we're not fully paid for.
Well, you would never fully pay for them because it doesn't make any sense to. It's like paying off your house and you can never sell it. Who are you going to sell it to? But you do take what's spinning off of that and reinvest it. You build a Hilton hotel like we're doing right now downtown. You build a 50,000 square foot ballroom so we can get access to the next level of convention business and employ more people. It's like the engine of downtown Indianapolis, and so we're just replicating that model, it potentially in this Hammond site, and it's going to have the same outcome that if you look 40 years ago, what downtown Indianapolis looked like.
No, it certainly takes a while,
It's great for Hammond. It's great for the people of Northwest Indiana.
I mean, it would certainly take a while, though. You know, look, if you've seen the area that they're talking about.
But we don't do these things like for 2 years at a time. We do them like for 30 years at a time. Then we do it again for 30 years at a time, right? I mean, we've had the RCA Dome here for 40 years, or now Lucas Oil Stadium, of course. We're about to enter a period where we're renegotiating that deal for another 30.
Right.
You know, so, I mean, we're really good at this here in Indianapolis, and it has served us very, very well. It served the people here very well in terms of economic opportunity and entertainment and all the things that make the city a great place to live.
Well, what about the fans, though? We've heard a lot about the pushback from the Bears fans, and as a lifelong Bears fan, is that going to have any?
Look, if the Dallas Cowboys can play an hour outside of Dallas, the Chicago Bears can play, 25 feet from the Illinois state line.
And they'll never change the name, we also heard as well. It'll always be the Chicago Bears. So that's some consolation. Well, the Indianapolis City County Council this week approved a new vehicle tax to fund road repairs, and Mayor Joe Hogsett quickly vetoed it. Zach Castle reports that this week, actually, the council pushed back to ensure long-term road funding support with help from the state.
Before Monday, council Democratic leaders said they didn't have the votes to reverse the mayor's veto, but after some disagreement, they passed the override vote 17-7. The new ordinance uses higher vehicle registration fees to match a state fund to repair and maintain crumbling roads in Marion County. Next year, the combined funding will bring $100 million to the effort. Democrat Maggie Lewis is council president.
We all recognize that the infrastructure in our community is absolutely horrible. And again, it required us to take a hard vote in order to secure $50 million.
During the meeting, Hogsett also introduced his $1.9 billion proposed 2027 budget.
So, Ebony, do you think that this road funding match will really help Indianapolis sustain infrastructure improvements in the long run?
Let's hope so. I've shared this sentiment online before, somewhat in jest, but driving on the streets of Indianapolis is indeed psychological warfare. It feels that way. Whether it's the cavernous potholes or projects that you just seem to never end. Like, where's this construction going? Where are we headed? Lane closures where you wonder, okay, the people that made this decision, did they do it on this day to bother me directly? It feels that personal. That is how serious this situation is. And I agree with Councilor Lewis. It's deplorable. Like, our streets should not look like this. So it's a tricky situation because on one hand, we absolutely need the support to get our infrastructure together. But on the other end, the issue of the funding, as far as like what it costs when you go to the BMV to register your vehicle, I'm concerned that we're going to create even more issues for people. So I wonder if there's something that could be done perhaps with the county trustee offices where we're helping people with that. It's not dissimilar to what the prosecutor's office does when you need your license reinstated after it's been suspended and you don't have the funding to be able to do that. Some sort of program to be able to help people out because driving here is expensive. BMV fees are expensive. All of that, but at the same time, these things have to be paid for some way. And the state legislature, unfortunately, has put us between a rock and a hard place when it comes to how our roads are funded.
I mean, we've heard that a lot, Mike, that, the state legislature enabled a $50 million. The city had to have a $50 million match. That was all new money. It felt, some people thought, like a bit of a trap, Do you think the lawmakers intended it to be?
Yeah. In full disclosure, I worked on this. We represent the city of Indianapolis, but for years have been looking for state support. And the legislature's opinion, Speaker Houston in particular, was use the tools every other county is using, and then come back to us. But until you've used the tool that we give everybody, and you refuse to use, then get lost. Go kick rocks. And so now the city has taken this step. I fully expect the city ought to go back to the legislature and look for more money. Indianapolis is a donor community. Can we change the formula on lane miles? Yes. Can we change the formula on other things? So we're pulling.
That's it.
We're pulling money in from other places because we're disproportionately impacted by it negatively. So yeah, I mean the legislature said it wasn't a trap. It was just like, here's a tool. Go use it like everybody else has. Yeah. And then come back and we'll see what's next.
Well, certainly road funding is a major issue for many communities, just not just Indianapolis here. We've seen, roads failing this week. Every penny is needed in every community across the state. Is road funding going to be a major thing that the lawmakers will have to look to next year?
Oh, they absolutely should.
Especially now. We just dug a $1 billion hole.
Well, and it's going to continue to be more expensive, you know, until things settle down over in the Middle East and we're able to see prices come down, the cost of petroleum, all of that goes into asphalt. People are going to struggle. I mean, not just people trying to fill up their cars, but communities, states are all going to be paying premium dollars for any kind of road construction they do.
It's also important that we're drawing a straight line between, and we're good at this in this state, I think, drawing a straight line between a tax I'm paying and what it's being used for. I'm not paying gas taxes for Medicaid. I'm paying gas taxes for the road I'm driving on when I fill my tank.
Well, I do want to mention as well, yes, I touched on it, but historic flooding this week in Indiana. Everyone, please do stay safe out there. And that is Indiana Week in Review for this week. Our panel has been Democrat Terri Austin, Republican Mike O'Brien, Laura Merrifield Wilson, political science professor at the University of Indianapolis, and Ebony Chappel, director of brand and community strategy at Free Press Indiana. You can find Indiana Week in Review's podcast and episodes at wfyi.org/IWIR or on the PBS app. I'm Jill Sheridan, managing editor at WFYI. Join us next time, because a lot can happen in an Indiana Week. The views expressed are solely those of the panelists.
Indiana Week in Review is produced by WFYI in association with Indiana Public Broadcasting Stations. Additional support is provided by Par Ritchie.